Daniel never expected his quiet life to end in fire and smoke. He had been flying a routine cargo run from Earth's outer colony station to a small mining post on the edge of Sector 9. The journey was supposed to take 6 hours. The shuttle was light, the sky was clear, and the system showed no signs of danger. But just 2 hours in, everything changed. It started with a strange hum at first. Daniel thought it was just the engine vibrating, but then the controls began flickering. The radar went blank. The guidance system shut down. And then the hum turned into a loud buzz like 100 angry bees inside the ship. Not good. Daniel muttered to himself. The shuttle shook hard. Sparks flew from the dashboard. The lights went dark, and before Daniel could grab the emergency override, the ship jerked downward like it had been pulled by a giant invisible hand. He was falling. The crash wasn't gentle. The shuttle slammed through trees, metal tearing against thick jungle branches. The landing gear broke off. A wing tore away. Daniel held tight to the seat as the ship bounced and finally skidded to a halt, buried halfway in mud and plants. For a few minutes, everything was still. Smoke rose from the broken panels. Daniel coughed and unstrapped himself. His leg was bruised, but nothing was broken. He was lucky. Where am I? He pushed open the emergency hatch and climbed out into a strange world. The sky was dark green, covered with thick clouds. Tall trees with wide leaves stretched into the sky. Strange flowers glowed faintly along the ground. The air was warm and heavy, filled with scents he couldn't name. Somewhere in the distance, something roared. This was not on any star chart. He had studied. He checked the ship's beacon. It was dead. No signal. No GPS. Just static. Daniel was alone for the next few hours. He worked on the ship. He tried to get power to the radio, but the energy cells were damaged. He ate a protein bar and drank water from his emergency kit. Then he climbed a nearby hill to get a better view. From the top, he saw something strange. A set of stone towers. Rising above the trees, they looked old, covered in vines, but still standing strong. Like a forgotten temple, Daniel felt a chill. Someone or something lived here once, or maybe still did by the time he climbed down the hill, the sun or whatever. Passed, for it was setting. The jungle grew darker, and the noises around him grew louder. He decided to return to the shuttle and set up camp for the night. But just as he reached the clearing, he heard a sound behind him, a hiss. He turned fast. There, standing between the trees, was a tall figure. She was at least 7 feet high, her body long and graceful. Her skin shimmered like polished metal, but it moved like flesh. From the waist up, she was humanoid in arms, a smooth face, sharp eyes that watched him closely. But from the waist down, her body was a thick, snake-like tail, curling over the forest floor. She wasn't alone. 4 others appeared behind her, each one holding long staffs and wearing armor made from a material that looked like silver and bone. Daniel stepped back. "I mean no harm," he said. "I'm just a traveler. I crashed here." The leader tilted her head. She didn't speak, but her eyes narrowed. She raised one hand and pointed to the shuttle. Daniel stayed still. Then she spoke. Her voice was calm, deep, and smooth like someone used to being obeyed. "You will come with us." Daniel hesitated. "I don't want trouble." "Wish to harm you?" she said. "But you are on sacred land. You must be taken to the Queen." Before Daniel could reply, one of the guards stepped forward, not threatening, just firm. It was clear they weren't asking. Daniel looked at the jungle, then at the broken shuttle. He had no working radio, no weapons, and no way to survive alone for long. Right now, his best chance was with them. He nodded slowly. "All right. Take me to her." The journey through the jungle was quiet. The snake people moved quickly, smoothly, as if they knew every stone and branch. Daniel walked behind them, watching their tails glide over the ground. They didn't speak much. Occasionally they glanced at him with curious eyes, but they weren't cruel, just careful. After nearly an hour, they reached the stone towers. They weren't ruins, not completely. Up close, Daniel saw carvings, moving lights, and strange tech woven into the walls. Guards stood at the gates. The place was alive, active, and very much in use. The leader brought him inside. They walked through long halls lit by floating orbs. Finally, they stopped at a large doorway guarded by 2 armored serpents. "She waits." "For you," the leader said. Daniel swallowed. "Who is she?" The leader smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. "She is Siraxa, queen of the Gavari, and she has been waiting for someone, like you." The doors opened, and Daniel stepped into the chamber of the alien snake queen. End of part 1. Daniel stepped into the throne chamber slowly, his boots tapping gently on the smooth stone floor. The air inside was cool and smelled like wild herbs and something sweet he couldn't name. The ceiling stretched high above him, shaped like the inside of a cave, but decorated with golden patterns and small glowing lights. At the center of the room stood the throne. It was made of stone and metal. It's carved in the shape of 2 great serpents wrapping around each other. And on that throne sat a figure unlike any he had seen before. The queen. She was tall, taller than any of the other snake-like beings he had met. Her skin shimmered with soft silver and green scales, but her face was calm, noble, and full of intelligence. Her long black hair fell over her shoulders like silk, and a golden crown rested on her brow. Her eyes, golden and sharp, watched Daniel closely. She looked like someone who had seen many years, many battles, and made many hard choices. "You are the human who fell from the sky," she said, her voice calm and deep. Daniel nodded. "My name is Daniel. I didn't mean to land here. My ship something pulled it down." She gave a small nod. "Yes, we know. You crossed into our skies during the time of the moon silence. The energy shield reacted. It was not your fault." Daniel relaxed a little. Maybe this wasn't a prison after all. "I don't know much about your world," he said, "but I don't want to cause trouble. I just want to repair my ship and go home." The queen stood slowly, her long serpent tail coiled beneath her. As she moved down the steps of the throne, it came closer to Daniel, stopping just a few steps away. She was tall, almost towering over him, but her expression stayed calm. "I am Siraxa, last queen of the Javari. This world is my home, and my people are nearly gone." Daniel blinked. "Gone? What happened?" "Time," she said. "War. Pride. Long ago we ruled not only this world but many. But greed and power destroyed us. Now we are few. Our bloodline is weak. Our future, uncertain." She looked directly at him, but then you came. Daniel felt nervous. Me, Siraxa nodded. "Yes, our scientists tested your biology while you slept in our healing room. You are different. Not only alive, but compatible. The first outsider who could give us what we need: life. A future." Daniel took a small step back. "Wait, what are you saying?" The queen raised her hand gently. "Do not fear. I will explain." She turned and slowly moved back toward the throne. As she spoke, her words were calm, not demanding more, like someone sharing truth, not giving orders. "Our people can no longer produce children on their own. The old blood is too thin. We have tried many ways. All failed. But now, for the first time in centuries, we have hope." "You." Daniel stared at her. The room felt quiet, too quiet. "You want me to stay here?" he asked. "To help your people survive?" Siraxa nodded. "Yes, I offer you more than a duty. I offer you a throne. You will be my chosen consort. With you, I will begin a new bloodline, one that holds both your strength and ours. You will not be a prisoner. You will be king." Daniel was stunned. His mouth went dry. "That's a lot. I'm just a technician. I fix broken ships. I don't wear crowns." Siraxa gave a small smile. "It is not your skill with machines I seek. It is the spark inside you. Humans carry something unique. Fire, survival, spirit. We lost it long ago. Perhaps you can help us find it again." Daniel walked to one of the tall windows. Outside, he saw the jungle stretching far and wide. Towers rose in the distance, Strange flying creatures moved through the sky. This world was ancient, beautiful and alone. He turned back to the queen. What if I say no? Siraxa did not flinch. Then you will be free to leave when your ship is repaired. We do not force bonds. The choice is yours. But I ask you to think carefully. You could give us a future. You could change a world. Daniel was quiet for a long time. Part of him wanted to go home, back to the stars, back to the safe, boring life he once knew. But another part, the part that had always wanted something more, was curious. Can I see your world? He asked. Before I decide, Siraxa bowed her head gently. You will be our guest. Walk with our people. Learn who we are. When you are ready, you may choose. Over the next few days, Daniel was given his own room in the palace. It was simple, but beautiful walls made of smooth stone, soft lights floating like fireflies, and a bed shaped to his comfort. He was given robes to wear and a guide named Reen, a younger Javari with bright green eyes and a cheerful voice. Reen showed him the city, the market, the gardens, and the learning halls. The Javari were quiet but respectful. Some were curious about Daniel. Others kept their distance. He saw young ones training with long spears, old ones drawing art on stone, and scholars studying strange glowing books filled with symbols he couldn't understand. One evening, Reen brought him to a temple built on the edge of a cliff. Below it, the sea roared against the rocks. Inside, Daniel saw carvings of old queens and kings, many of them snake-like, some part human. Were these ... your ancestors? Daniel asked. Reen nodded. Yes, some say we once guided many races. Long ago, we even visited your Earth. Daniel frowned. What? Reen smiled. Old stories? Maybe true. Maybe not. But maybe this meeting was never an accident. Daniel stood there for a while, staring at the carvings. Something deep inside him stirred. Was he part of something bigger? Now, was this his story too? End of part 2? Daniel sat under the tall glowing tree in the royal garden. Gosh, it was night, but the leaves above gave off a soft silver light. The air was warm, the wind quiet. He had never seen a sky like this before. 2 moons, stars moving slowly like dancers. In the dark, his mind was full of questions. The queen's offer still echoed in his thoughts. A throne, a future, a strange, beautiful people who needed help, and he was the only one who could give it. But why him? He looked at his hands. He was just a man, a technician. Duh! Someone who fixed broken machines and kept old systems running. Wasn't a leader. He wasn't brave. He wasn't... Royal Reen, the young Javari guide, walked up behind him. You are quiet tonight.
Oh.
Reen said softly. Daniel gave a small smile. I have a lot on my mind. Reen sat beside him, his long tail curled beneath him like a cushion. Is it about the queen's offer? Daniel nodded. I don't know what to do, Reen tilted his head. What do you fear? Daniel thought for a moment. I don't want to make a mistake. What if I choose wrong? What if I accept something I'm not ready for? Reen nodded slowly. It is wise to think. But do not forget, sometimes life gives us paths we do not expect, the strongest. Choice is not always the easy one. Daniel looked at Reen. Do your people trust me? Some do, Reen said. Others still fear change. You are different. That can be hard for them. Daniel lowered his head. What if they never accept me? Then you show them who you are, Reen said kindly. Not with power, with truth, they will see. The next morning, Queen Siraxa called for Daniel. Again, he was brought to a chamber filled with scrolls, floating books, and walls covered in moving pictures, ancient Gavari knowledge. She stood near a wide table looking at a glowing map of the galaxy. You slept well? She asked without turning. More or less, Daniel said. She looked at him. Her expression was calm, but her eyes held many thoughts. I asked you to come because I wish to show you something, she said. She touched the table. A new image appeared, a view of their planet long ago. Dozens of spaceports, towers rising into the sky, great ships flying between stars. This was Vuric 7, Siraxa said. Once, we were strong, wise, but we became proud. We stopped listening, we closed ourselves off, and slowly, we faded. Daniel stared at the map. What happened to your ships? Your colonies? Lost, she said, to war, to time.
War.
Enemies rose. We failed to adapt. She turned to him. But now we have a chance. Not to return to old power, but to begin a new future. You are not Javari, and that is why you matter. Daniel took a deep breath. Why me, though? Why not? Wait for someone else? Because we may not get another chance, she answered. The bond between us is rare. Nature brought you here. I do not believe it was by accident. Daniel was silent. Siraxa stepped closer.
God.
You do not have to answer now. Council will meet. They must know your choice. Till then, walk with me. Later that day, Daniel walked through the city again, this time, without guards, where Javari sold strange fruits, tools, and jewelry made from crystal bones. A few of them nodded to him politely. Others looked. Away, in a quiet alley, he noticed a group of Javari speaking in whispers. They didn't see him at first. He stepped closer to listen. He is not one of us, said one voice. If the queen binds herself to him, our blood will change forever. Perhaps change is needed, another said. No, said a third voice. He is a stranger, a risk. There are others who still carry the old blood. The queen is forgotten. Them, Daniel didn't hear more. He turned and walked away. So some Javari were against him. Maybe even planning something. That evening, Siraxa met him in the garden again. She wore a simple robe made of soft cloth, not her crown. You walked among the people today, she said. Daniel nodded. Yes, some welcomed me. Some didn't. Siraxa's eyes darkened slightly. There are voices who fear what I offer. They whisper of rebellion, of the past. Daniel looked at her carefully. And what do you fear? I fear silence, she said. If our people die without trying to change, then we deserve to vanish. I would rather risk the unknown than stay in the dust. Daniel nodded slowly. You're strong. She smiled slightly. So are you, Daniel. You just don't see it. Yet Daniel looked up at the stars. If I accept, what happens next? You will become my chosen, Siraxa said, in name. In bond, we will build a future together. It's not just with blood, but with unity. I will not control you. You will be free. But your place will be beside me. Daniel was quiet for a long time. Then he said, Can I speak to your council? Siraxa raised an eyebrow. Why? I want them to hear my voice, Daniel said. Not just yours. If I am to be a part of this world, I want to speak to it. Siraxa studied him for a moment, then nodded. Double quotes very well, she said. Tomorrow you will speak, and they will listen. That night, Daniel stood again, under the glowing tree. He didn't know what the council would think of him. He didn't know if the Javari would ever truly accept a human on their throne. But he knew one thing. He couldn't turn away. Not now. Not when he had the chance to help a dying people. Not when he had the chance to write a new chapter for two worlds. End of. Part 3, Part 4 coming next on request. The council hall of the Javari stood at the highest point of the city. It was carved into the side of a tall mountain, with wide windows that opened to the clouds. From here, Daniel could see the jungle stretching into the horizon, and the ocean glimmering beyond. Inside the hall, 13 Javari elders sat in a half-circle. Each one wore robes of dark blue and gold. Some looked ancient, their scales faded with age. Others were younger, but carried strong expressions of power. Queen Siraxa stood beside Daniel. She looked calm, but Daniel could feel the tension in the room. A deep voice filled the air. Human, Daniel, said one of the elders, a broad-shouldered male with black markings across his face. Why do you stand here? You are not of our blood. Why should we listen to you? Daniel stepped forward slowly. His hands were steady, though his heart was beating fast. I came here by accident, he said. I didn't ask to be part of your world. But now that I'm here, I see something important. I see a people who are strong, who have survived so much.
Wow.
And I also see pain, fear, division. He looked around the room. I don't pretend to understand everything about your culture, but I know this change is hard. Trusting someone new is harder, but if you don't try, your future might vanish. One of the elders, a thin female with golden eyes, leaned forward. And you believe you can save us? Daniel shook his head. No, I don't think I can save anyone alone. But maybe together we can build something better. I didn't come here to take power. I came because your queen gave me a choice, and I chose to help. The council room was silent for a long moment. Then a voice spoke from the shadows. He is a threat to our legacy. A tall figure stepped out. Daniel had seen him once before, at a distance during the palace walk. He was slim, his scales dark blue, and his eyes sharp. He wore armor, not robes. His name was Verith. He does not understand our ways, Verith said. He speaks with good words, but he is still an outsider. And you, he looked at Siraxa, have allowed emotion to cloud your judgment. Siraxa's voice was calm. Verith, you forget your place. I forget nothing, Verith replied. The old blood still runs in our veins, or those more worthy of your throne. This human is a danger. Daniel stayed silent. He didn't want to argue. He wanted to understand. An older elder spoke up. Enough. The council will decide after hearing all sides. Sverith, you may speak with the queen later. For now, let the guests speak freely. Siraxa placed her hand gently on Daniel's shoulder. Come, she said. The council will speak in private now. Back in the palace, Daniel paced the garden. Reen sat nearby, watching him. Who is Verith? Daniel asked. He is a noble, Reen said. A warrior. Once his family served the old emperors. He believes the Javari should return to those days pure, proud, untouched by other races. So he sees me as a threat. Reen nodded. Yes, he will not stop with words. He has supporters. Strong ones. Daniel sighed. Great. I wanted to help, not start a civil war. Reen smiled slightly. Sometimes help brings change, and change brings fire. Daniel sat down, tired. What would you do? Reen looked at the sky. If the old way leads to death, then it must burn. Even if the fire is hard. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He walked through the palace halls, thinking. But he wasn't alone. Near the east wing, he heard soft whispers. Shadows moved near one of the doors. He stepped closer, staying quiet. 2 Javari guards stood in the hallway, speaking in low voices. One of them held a strange device, something that looked like a crystal bomb. Daniel's eyes widened. He slowly stepped back and returned to his room. He activated the silent alarm stone that Siraxa had given him. Within minutes, 2 royal guards arrived. Daniel explained what he saw. They moved fast. Soon, the guards were captured. One of them confessed under questioning. They were sent by Verith. They planned to destroy part of the palace during the councils. Next meeting, 2, force fear into the others and turn them against the queen and the human. Daniel sat with Siraxa in her private chamber. Her eyes were closed, and her tail was wrapped tightly around her chair. You were right to act, she said. This will not be the last attempt. What will you do? Daniel asked. I will bring this to the council, she said. Let them see who truly wishes to protect our people and who only seeks control. The next morning, the council gathered again. Siraxa stood before them, calm and tall. She presented the guards, the weapon, and the confession. Verith stood to the side, silent but tense. You claim to love our people, Siraxa said, yet you were ready to hurt them to scare them into obedience. This is not strength. This is weakness. The elders spoke quietly for a long time. Then the lead elder stood. Verith is removed from the council, he said, and he will be watched. No more shadows. No more tricks. Verith's face was cold. He bowed slowly, then walked away. Daniel let out a breath. One danger was stopped, but others might follow. Still, something had changed. When Daniel walked through the halls now, more Javari nodded at him. Some even greeted him by name. He was no longer just a visitor. He was part of their story now. That evening, Siraxa invited Daniel to the tower balcony. Below them, city lights glowed softly. "You have made your mark already," she said. "Even without power." Daniel looked at her. "I'm not sure I'm ready for what's next." She smiled gently. "None of us are, Dodd, but we move forward anyway." Daniel nodded. "I want to stand beside you, not just as a symbol." "A partner?" Siraxa turned toward him. Her eyes, golden and wise, reflected the stars. "Then we will face the future together." End of Part 4, Part 5 coming next on request. Daniel stood at the center of the training arena. The sun of Varric 7 was low in the sky, casting long shadows across the stone ground. Around him, a group of young Javari warriors trained with long spears and circular shields. Their movements were sharp and fast. Their tails moved with balance and grace. At first, they only watched him from a distance. But as the days passed, they allowed him to join in simple drills. Daniel wasn't a fighter, but he learned quickly. He followed their moves, copied their stance, and asked questions. He made mistakes, but he kept trying. Slowly, the warriors began to nod with respect. One of them, a young Javari named Mail, approached him after a session. "You fight with no tail," Mail said, "but you do not fall." Daniel laughed, wiping sweat from his forehead. "That's the best compliment I've heard all day." "You're stubborn," Mail said. "Like our queen," Daniel smiled. "Maybe that's why she trusts me." Later that night, Daniel walked through the city market alone. Streets were busier than usual. Vendors shouted from their stalls, offering glowing fruits and woven cloaks. Children played with floating orbs. Music from a stringed instrument echoed in the air. People no longer stared at him like a stranger. Now, some greeted him. Others waved. A few even offered small gift stones with names carved into them, or pieces of fruit wrapped in leaves. Daniel kept each one carefully. He felt something real growing between him and the Scifi. Trust in the palace. Queen Siraxa watched a small floating screen. It showed scenes from across the city council meetings, city repairs, education centers. All of them had been slowly improving since Daniel's arrival. She turned as he entered the chamber. "You walk freely among them now," she said. Daniel nodded. "They're getting used to me." Siraxa folded her arms. "They see your effort. They see that you do not try to rule them. You listen, you learn. That is rare." Daniel looked at her. "I think people everywhere want the same things: safety, respect, a future. Maybe I just remind them that it's possible." She stepped closer. "You carry something your kind calls spirit. It burns, even when lost in a strange world." Daniel shrugged. "I just don't like giving up." Siraxa smiled. "That spark, you lost it long ago. You've brought it back." But not everyone was smiling. In a quiet hall, deep under the city, Varith stood before a small group of nobles. His armor was gone, but his voice remained cold and strong. "He gains their hearts with simple words and small kindness," Varith said. "They forget who we are. They forget our pride." One of the nobles hesitated, but the people follow him. Even the guards respect him. Varith narrowed his eyes. "Then we must remind them, not with violence, with tradition." The next morning, a formal letter arrived at the palace. It was written in ancient Javari script, sealed with the mark of the old noble families. Daniel and Siraxa read it together. "A challenge," Siraxa said softly. "To what?" Daniel asked. "To prove your worth. A public test, not of strength, but of wisdom." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "What kind of test?" Siraxa looked at him. "You must face the trial of the 9 stones." The trial of the 9 stones was an old tradition. It had not been used in generations. It was not a fight, but a puzzle one designed to test the mind, the heart, and the spirit. It took place in the Temple of Balance, a round stone chamber lit by natural light from a wide hole in the ceiling. In the center were 9 large stones, each with a different symbol carved into its face fire. Water, wind, stone, shadow, light, time, life, and memory. A voice from the crowd explained the rules. You may only move 3 stones. The rest must remain where they are. The goal is simple: Bring balance to the center. Daniel stepped into the circle. Dozens of Javari watched in silence. Even Vareth stood nearby, arms crossed, eyes narrow. Daniel looked at the stones. He had no guide, no instructions. Just symbols and silence. He sat on the ground. He closed his eyes. He thought fire and water. Opposites, light and shadow. Also opposites. Stone and wind, one still, one moving time in memory. Connected life, was it the key? He opened his eyes and stood. First he moved the stone of memory closer to time. Then he moved the stone of fire opposite to water, not beside it. Finally, he placed the stone of life in the exact center. Then he stepped back. The chamber was still. For a moment nothing happened. Then slowly the stones began to glow. One by one, each symbol lit up with soft light. The chamber filled with warmth and quiet sound, like distant music. The crowd gasped softly. The trial was passed. Outside the temple, the crowd surrounded Daniel. Male clapped him on the back. Reen smiled proudly. Even some elders nodded in respect. Vareth said nothing, simply turned and walked away. Inside the palace, Siraxa waited. Daniel entered. She stood. "You have done more than pass a trial," she said. "You have silenced fear." Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. "I guessed most of it, to be honest." Siraxa stepped closer. It was not the answer that mattered. It was how you looked for it, with patience. With thought, with care. Daniel looked at her seriously. "I meant what I said before. I'm not here to rule. I'm here to build something with you," she nodded. "Then let us begin." That night, lights shined across the city. Music filled the air. For the first time in many years, the Javari celebrated not war, not power, but hope. Daniel stood beside Siraxa on the high balcony. Below, the people cheered. Not for a hero, not for a king, but for a new beginning. Daniel turned to Siraxa. "Whatever comes next," he said, "we'll face it together." Siraxa nodded, her golden eyes glowing softly in the moonlight. "Yes," she said, "together." One of Part 5. The sun was rising over Varric 7, painting the sky in soft orange and purple light. From the balcony of the royal tower, Daniel looked out at the world that had once been unknown to him. Now it was his second home. The city below was preparing for something special. Today was the ceremony of bonding in ancient tradition among the Javari. It was not just a royal event, but a symbol of unity. It did not bind to people by force. It joined them in purpose, respect, and shared future. And today, Daniel would stand beside Queen Siraxa in that ceremony. He had not made the decision lightly. But after all the trials, after all the days he spent with the people, he knew what he wanted. He was no longer just a visitor, he was a part of this world. There was a soft knock on his chamber door. It opened, and Reen entered with a warm smile. "It's time," Reen said. "The queen waits for you." Daniel took one last look at the sky, then nodded. "Let's go." The great Temple of Stars stood in the middle of the royal district. Its tall spires rose like fingers reaching for the heavens. Hundreds of Javari gathered inside, filling the wide hall with quiet excitement. Elders, warriors, traders, children, everyone came to witness this historic moment. The temple was shaped like a circle. In the center stood a raised platform made of smooth white stone. Around it, 9 glowing stones floated in the air, each representing one of the sacred values: wisdom, strength, balance, kindness, memory, unity, courage, truth, and hope. Daniel walked slowly down the main path, wearing a long robe the color of deep blue sky. The robe had golden threads, woven in shapes of stars and rivers. As he stepped forward, the crowd bowed their heads in respect. On the other side of the platform, Siraxa stood tall and graceful. Her robe was silver, her crown simple but beautiful. Her long tail curled behind her gently. She looked calm, but Daniel could feel something different in her eyes today. Warmth. When they met at the center, the room fell silent. The high speaker of the Javari stepped forward, holding an old staff carved with symbols of both past and future. Today, the High Speaker said. We witness a rare moment, a moment when two paths, once far apart, become one. He turned to Daniel. You came from a world of machines and stars, but you brought something we had forgotten, humility, fire, and the courage to understand. Then he turned to Siraxa. You are the last of our royal line, queen who chose unity over pride, who offered not power, but peace. The speaker lifted his staff. Step forward and speak your bond. Siraxa looked at Daniel and began. Siraxa of the Javari, do not take a consort for power. Take a partner for the future. You are not of our blood, but your spirit is strong. I offer you a place beside me, not to follow, not to rule, but to walk with me. Daniel felt a deep stillness in the room. Then he spoke. I, Daniel of Earth, do not come with pride. I come with open hands. I accept your bond, not because I'm needed, but because I believe in what we can build together. Stand not as a stranger, but as a friend, a partner, and one who chooses this future freely. The floating stones around them began to glow brighter, slowly circling the platform. Soft hum filled the temple, like music from the planet itself. The speaker raised his staff again. Let all who stand here today witness this bond not of blood, but of purpose. The ceremony was complete. After the temple gathering, the celebration moved to the open courtyards. Long tables were filled with food-bright fruits, soft breads, and sweet drinks. Musicians played soft songs on stringed instruments, dancers moved in graceful patterns, their scales shining under the lantern light. Daniel walked through the crowd with Siraxa beside him. People greeted them with smiles and words of blessing. Children gave him small carved stones and flowers. You are one of us now, said an elder, as she placed a necklace around Daniel's neck. Later, Siraxa led him to a quiet balcony at the edge of the palace. Below them, the city glowed with lights. You spoke well. Yes, she said. I just said what I felt, Daniel replied. I didn't know if it was enough. It was more than enough, Siraxa said softly. You spoke with truth. That matters more than perfect words. They stood together in silence for a moment. Daniel turned to her. You think the people truly accept me? Some do, she answered. Others will need time. But this is how healing begins. One step, one voice, one bond. Daniel nodded. Then we'll keep walking forward. As the night went on, a gentle breeze moved through the palace gardens. The stars above were bright and the moons hung low in the sky. Daniel found himself thinking about Earth, his old life, the routine, the silence, the long hours fixing machines. It had been safe, easy, but also lonely. Here, he had found something unexpected. Not just adventure, not just a throne. He had found meaning. He had found a people. He had found a queen who didn't want a king but wanted a partner. And, most of all, he had found purpose. Somewhere in the distance, a temple bell rang gently. Siraxa looked up at the sky. A new cycle begins, she said. Daniel smiled. Then let's make it a good one. End of Part 6, Part 7, the final part? Coming next on request? The first light of dawn painted the sky in soft pinks and gold. The city of Arc 7 was quiet, still waking from the celebration of the ceremony of bonding. Daniel stood beside Queen Siraxa on the palace balcony, watching the slow rise of the twin moons. The future was no longer uncertain. Months had passed since the ceremony. Daniel had grown into his new role not as a king, but as a partner, a friend, and a symbol of hope. Together, he and Siraxa had begun to heal the wounds of the past and build bridges between the old ways and new dreams. But the greatest challenge was still ahead. One morning, Siraxa summoned Daniel to the throne room. Her eyes were serious but calm. The time has come, she said. To secure the future of our people, we must begin the sacred bond. Daniel felt a mix of emotions. He had known this moment would arrive. The Javari tradition was clear. The queen and her chosen consort were to unite not only in spirit but in life. Their union would bring forth an heir, the child who would carry the blood of two worlds and lead the Javari into a new age. He looked at her. steady and sure. "I understand," he said. Days later, Daniel found himself in the healing chamber, a serene place filled with soft light and fragrant herbs. The walls were carved with ancient symbols of life, growth, and protection. Siraxa was already there, waiting. Her eyes met his with quiet strength. "This is a sacred ritual," she said. "It is not just about birth. It is about trust, respect, and the promise of a new beginning." Daniel nodded. "I'm ready." The ritual began with a ceremony of light. The healers moved around them, chanting softly, their hands glowing with gentle energy. The air shimmered as Siraxa and Daniel joined hands. They spoke words in the old tongue, words of hope, unity, and life. The room filled with warmth and peace. For Daniel, it was a moment of deep connection, not just with Siraxa, but with the planet, the people, and a future he had never imagined. Weeks passed, and the city waited with hope. Daniel walked the streets, with Siraxa watching the people's faces, some filled with joy, others with cautious optimism. The old fears were not gone, but slowly fading. One evening, Reen came to Daniel with news. "The healer sense life," Reen said, smiling. "The bond is growing stronger." Daniel's heart swelled with joy. "This child will be a symbol," he said softly. "A bridge between Earth and Varric 7. Months later, a great celebration filled the city. The heir was born. A child with shining scales that shimmered silver and green, with eyes deep like the stars. The people gathered, their voices rising in song and joy. Daniel held the child gently, feeling the tiny heartbeat, new life full of promise. Siraxa stood beside him, her tail wrapped protectively around them both. "This child," she said, "will lead us forward, the courage of humanity and the wisdom of the Javari." In the days that followed, Daniel and Siraxa traveled the city together, visiting the people, sharing hope and strength. The bond between the two worlds grew deeper. Old rivalries softened, new friendships blossomed. Vaerith, once a fierce opponent, watched quietly from the shadows. But even he could not deny the change. One day, we approached Daniel. "You have brought something I thought lost," Vaerith said. "Maybe there is a future after all." Daniel nodded. "We'll take time, but together we can build it." The sun set over Varric 7, casting golden light across the jungle and city. Daniel stood beside Siraxa once more, looking at the child. Sleeping peacefully, he thought of Earth, his home, and of this new world that had become his family. He smiled. The throne was no longer just a seat of power. It was a promise of hope, a unity, and a future where two worlds could become one. End of story.